Chapter 22, Rissa. Rissa Megan Ward watches everything around her closely and carefully. She's seen enough state-ho to know that survival rests now on how observant you are. For the 3 weeks, she, Connor, and a mixed bag of unwinds have been shuttled from one safe house to another. It's maddening, for there seems to be no end in sight to this relentless underground railroad of refugees. There are dozens of kids being moved around, but there are never more than 5 or 6 at a time in any given safe house, and Rissa rarely sees the same kids twice. The only reason she and Connor have been able to stay together is because they pose as a couple. It's practical, and it serves both their interests. What's the expression? The devil you know is better than one than you don't. The devil you know is better than the one you don't. Finally, they're dumped in a huge empty warehouse in a thundering air traffic zone. Cheap realty for hiding unwanted kids. It's a Spartan building with a corrugated steel roof that shakes so badly when a plane passes overhead. She half expects it to collapse. There are almost 30 kids here when they arrive, and many of them are kids Rissa and Connor had come across over the past few weeks. This is a holding tank, she realizes. A place where all the kids are warehoused in preparation for some final journey. There are chains on the doors to keep anyone unwanted out and to keep anyone too rebellious in. There are space heaters that are useless since all the heat is lost to the high warehouse roof. There's only one bathroom with a broken lock, and unlike many of the safe houses, there's no shower. So personal hygiene is put on hold the moment they arrive. Put out that together with a gang of scared, angry kids, and you've got a powder keg waiting to explode. Perhaps that's why the people who run the show all carry guns. There are 4 men and 3 women in charge, all of them militarized versions of the folks who, like Sonia, run the safe houses. Everyone calls them the fatigues. Remember that fatigues are like what army people wear? Not just because they have a penchant towards khaki military clothing, but because they always seem exhausted. Even so, they have a high-tension determination about them that Rissa admires. A handful of new kids arrives almost every day, and Rissa watches each group of arrivals with interest and notices that Connor does too. She knows why. You're looking for Lev too, aren't you? She finally says to him. He shrugs. Maybe I'm just looking for the Akron AWOL like everyone else. That makes Rissa chuckle. Even in the safe houses, they've heard the inflated rumors of an AWOL. And remember, AWOL means absent without leave, from Akron, who escaped the juvie cops by turning his own trank pistol against him. Maybe he's on his way here, kids would whisper around the warehouse, like they were talking about a celebrity. Rissa has no idea how the rumor started, since it was never in the news. She's also a bit annoyed that she's not included in the rumor. It ought to be a Bonnie and Clyde kind of thing. The rumor mill is definitely sexist. So, are you ever going to tell them you're the Akron AWOL? She quietly asked Connor. I don't want that kind of attention. Besides, who would believe me anyway? They're all saying the Akron AWOL is this big buff superhero. I don't want to disappoint them. Lev doesn't show up with any of the batches of new kids. The only thing that arrives with them is an increase of tension. 43 kids by the end of their first week, and there's still one bathroom, no shower, and no answer as to how long this will last. Restlessness hangs as heavy as body odor in the air. The fatigues do their best to keep them all fed and occupied, if only to minimize friction. There are a few crates of games, incomplete decks of cards, and dog-eared books that no library wanted. There are no electronics, no balls, nothing that would create or encourage noise. If people out here hear you, then you're done for. The fatigues remind them as often as they can. Rissa wonders if the fatigues have lives separate and apart from saving unwinds, or if this endeavor is their life's work. Why are you doing this for us? Rissa asked one of them during their second week. The fatigue has been almost rote in her answer, like giving a soundbite to a reporter. Saving you and others is an act of conscience, the woman had said. Doing it is its own reward. The fatigues all talk like that. Big picture speak, Rissa calls it. Seeing the whole and none of the parts. It's not just their speech. It's not just in their speech, but in their eyes as well. When they look at Rissa, she can tell they don't really see her. They seem to see the mob of unwinds as more of a concept than a collection of anxious kids, and so they miss all the subtle social tremors that shake things just as powerfully as the jets shake the roof. By the end of the second week, Rissa has a pretty good idea where trouble is brewing. It all revolves around one kid she'd hoped she'd never see again, but he turned up shortly after she and Connor arrived. Roland. Of all the kids here, he's by far the most potentially dangerous. The troubling thing is that Connor hasn't exactly been the image of emotional stability himself this past week. He's been all right in the safe houses. He held his temper. He hadn't done anything too impulsive or irrational. Here, however, in the midst of so many kids, he's different. He's irritable and defiant. The slightest thing can set him off. He's been in half a dozen fights already. She knows this must be why his parents chose to have him unwound. A firestorm temper can drive some parents to desperate measures. Common sense tells Rissa to distance herself from him. Their alliance has been one of necessity, but there's no reason to ally herself with him anymore. Yet, day after day, she keeps finding herself drawn to him and worried about him. She approaches them shortly after breakfast one day, determined to open his eyes to a clear and present danger. He's sitting by himself, etching a portrait into the concrete floor with a rusty nail. Rissa wishes she could say it was good, but Connor's not much of an artist. It disappoints her, because she desperately wants to find something redeeming about him. If he were an artist, they could relate on a creative level. She could talk to him about her passion for music, and he would get it. As it is, she doesn't think he even knows or cares that she plays the piano. "Who are you drawing?" she asks. "Just a girl I knew back home," he says. Rissa silently suffocates her jealousy in a quick emotional vacuum. "Someone you cared about?" Sort of. Rissa takes a better look at the sketch. Her eyes are too big for her face. "I guess that's because it's her eyes I remember the most. And her forehead's too low. The way you've drawn it, she'd have no room for a brain." "Yeah, well, she wasn't all that bright." Rissa laughs at that, and it makes Connor smile. When he smiles, it's hard to imagine he's the same guy who got into all those fights. She gauges whether or not he'd be open to hear what she has to tell him. He looks away from her. "Is there something you want, or are you just an art critic today?" "I was wondering why you're sitting by yourself." "Ah, so now you're my shrink. So you're also my shrink." "Well, we're supposed to be a couple. If we're going to keep up the image, you can't be entirely antisocial." Connor looks over the groups of kids, busy in various morning activities. Rissa follows his gaze. There's a group of kids who hate the world and spend all day spewing venom. There's a mouth-breathing kid who does nothing but read the same comic book over and over again. May is paired off with a glum, spiked-haired boy named Vincent, who's all leather and body piercings. He must be her soulmate, because they make out all day long, drawing a cluster of other kids who just sit there and watch. "I don't want to be social," Connor says. "I don't like the kids here." "Why?" asks Rissa. "They're too much like you?" "They're losers." "Yeah, that's what I mean." He gives her a half-hearted, dirty look, then looks at his drawing, but she can tell he's not thinking about the girl. His head is somewhere else. "If I'm off by myself, then I don't get into fights." He puts down the nail, giving up on the etching. I don't know what gets into me. Maybe it's all the voices, Maybe it's all the bodies moving all around me. It makes me feel like I've got ants crawling inside my brain and I want to scream. I can't stand it. I can stand it for just so long, and then I blow. It happened even at home. Everyone was talking all at once at the dinner table. One time, We had family over and the talk got me so crazy I hurled a plate at the china hutch. Glass blew everywhere, ruined the meal. My parents asked me what got into me, and I couldn't tell them. That Connor's willing to share this with her makes her feel good. It makes her feel closer to him. Maybe now that he's opened up, he'll stay open long enough to hear what she has to tell him. There's something I want to talk about. Yeah? Rissa sits beside him, keeping her voice low. I want you to watch the other kids, where they go, who they talk to. All of them? Yeah, but one at a time. After a while, you'll start to notice things. Like what? Like the kids who eat first are the ones who spend the most time with Roland, but he never goes to the front of the line himself. Like the way his closest friends infiltrate all the other cliques and get them arguing so that they break apart. Like the way Roland is especially nice to kids that everyone feels sorry for. But only until nobody feels sorry for them anymore, and then he uses them. Sounds like you're doing a class project on him. I'm being serious. I've seen this before. He's power hungry, he's ruthless, and he's very, very smart. Connor laughs at that. Roland? He couldn't think himself out of a paper bag. No. But he could think everyone else into one and then crush it. Clearly that gives Connor pause for thought. Good, thinks Rissa. He needs to think. He needs to strategize. Why are you telling me this? Because you're his biggest threat. Me? You're a fighter. Everyone knows that. And they also know you don't take crap from anyone. Have you heard kids mumbling about how someone ought to do something about Roland? Yeah. They only say that when you're close enough to hear. They're expecting you to do something about him. And Roland knows it. He tries to wave her off, but she gets in his face. Listen to me, because I know what I'm talking about. Back at State House, there were always dangerous kids who bullied their way into power. They were able to do it because they knew exactly who to take down and when. And the kid they took down the hardest was the one with the greatest potential for taking them down. He can see Connor curling his right hand into a fist. She knows she's not getting through to him. He's getting the wrong message. If he wants a fight, he'll get one. No! You can't take the bait. That's what he wants. He'll do everything within his power to pull you into a fight, but you can't do it. Connor hardens his jaw. You think I can't take him in a fight? Rissa grabs his wrist and holds it tight. A kid like Roland doesn't want to fight you. He wants to kill you.